Welcome to No Tourists Allowed, a podcast where two recognized travel industry executives with a combined 69 years on the inside of travel and technology give up their secrets to the thing everyone wants to do. Travel better, pay less, and see more of the world. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello, I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Ferrara.
And welcome to episode 11 of No Tourist Allowed. We're very excited to have a special guest with us today, Mr. Mark Ross Smith, who is the CEO and co-founder of Status Match, which is a really interesting company. And I'm look
Sounds
forward
like
to
a dating application. Are we moving into a different area with this podcast?
Yeah, I guess so. It could be thought of that way.
So this week, Mike, I thought we would talk about something that's very important to a lot of travelers, and that's loyalty programs. I know you're a big fan, and you and I both count our points and watch our mileage on airlines, on hotels, car rental companies, and we try to leverage all that frequent travel into benefits for us, upgrades, priority treatment at the airport, free luggage, and so on. And, for me, it's become really important, and it really changes the whole experience of travel. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And we are really honored to have one of the foremost experts on loyalty programs as our guest today. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Mark Ross Smith. He is the CEO and co-founder of Status Match. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, Mike and James. You're actually right. It has been referred to as sort of dating for airlines. So maybe we'll get into that.
I think that's brilliant. Brilliant.
Mark is a great guy, and I've over the last couple of years got to know him a little bit better. And Mark is podding in from Malaysia, I believe, right, Mark?
That's correct.
Where it's late at night. We're recording this earlier in the morning, and so thanks for staying up and making the effort to be on No Tourist Allowed. And you can find out more information about us at notouristalloud.com. Shameless plug there. Mark, why don't we start off by giving our listeners a little bit of background on yourself? How did you get in the travel business, and how did you become an expert in the loyalty space?
So this is funny. So I actually started when I was about 10 years old. My parents, got magazines, like business magazines in the mail, right? So every week there's a new edition of whatever. And when I came home from school, when these magazines arrived, the mail kind of arrived at about the same time. This is the 80s, mind you, or 90s, mind you. So, you get the magazine and I'd sort of open up and there'd be all these airline ads in there, like full page color spreads, Cathay Pacific now flying to here and, big 747, really beautiful stuff. And I used to tear these pages out of the magazine and stick them on my wall. And so my bedroom was just plastered full of airline stuff everywhere. And of course, my parents, when they go to read the magazine, there's a couple of pages missing, missing all the good stuff. So I kind of started there. But, I'm essentially an internet entrepreneur, and, I've started a bunch of internet businesses. And when you do that, you fly around the world, you meet people, you go to events, you shake hands and stuff like that. And so I'm just a traveler, really. I'm just a bit of a frequent flyer nerd. Got into the points and miles and credit card stuff that sort of comes naturally with flying a lot. And then what happens when you start flying even more, airlines sit up and take notice. They go, look at this guy, he's, doing 200 flights a year. He's spending a bit of coin with this. He's pretty young. He's doing something right. And they want to meet you. And so that's when I really got interested in the business side of travel, when, airline executives started to want to meet me and find out what I'm doing and, basically how to get me to spend my money. That sort of kicked off the whole, business interest side of it, and, sort of escalated from there, I guess, in my interest level and wanting to do more, and then eventually now running a business in this space.
You mentioned you were involved in other internet-based companies. Can you name off a couple of successes that you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, the biggest one is company called SBS Fun. It was in Australia, Oceania. So it was a social network, a telco social network. Built that from scratch, ran it for just over 7 years, sold that in 2013 to an industry sale. And that was really fun. That was a sort of a cash sale, walk away, no earnouts, no nothing. So I had a bit of money, and tax in Australia is quite high. So I just wanted to get out of there. After that, learned my lesson. And then I moved to Hong Kong after that. I thought, I like Asia, always flying through there. I thought it's either Singapore or Hong Kong because they're both pretty pro-business, and landed in Hong Kong.
Awesome. And then tell our listeners how you formed Status Match and what you do there.
Building on my Hong Kong story, when I moved there, I actually asked Cathay Pacific for a Status Match. And so Status Match, for anyone not clued in, is been around. The idea of it's been around for about 40 years or so. It's where you've got, like gold or platinum status at one airline or hotel, and you effectively ask the competition. You say, "Hey, look, I've got gold status over here. If you give me gold status over here with you, I'll shift my business." So you're kind of matching the status level. Yeah. So I contacted Cathay Pacific in Hong Kong, and I said, I'm this super Uber VIP with this other airline. Can you status match me? And they said no. Screw you. I'll show you. Anyway, I hit up a couple of other airlines, and they said no as well. And I'm like, why wouldn't they do this? I'm spending all this money, and I've just moved countries. I need a new airline, right? I need new credit cards. You need the whole thing. And that's really what kickstarted Status Match, in that I started researching why airlines didn't want to do this, because I'd not worked for an airline before this, right? I'd sort of come in just from a pure consumer perspective. And so I just sold my business. So I had no job at the time. So I thought, how do you learn about this? There's no university to go learn about airline loyalty. There's not really any courses online. And so I just started paying my way to industry events, as an outsider, just to try and learn. And it was pretty expensive going to these events. And, after a while, I thought this is kind of fun. And from having the experience of being a real frequent flyer, I felt to some of the sort of talks I'm hearing at these events on stage, I felt that I might know more about loyalty than some of these people, because I'm a real customer of this. And people that work at airlines, they're not customers of their own product, right? It's effectively a job. They don't earn platinum status by themselves. They just get it for free. And when they fly, they're on $20 business class tickets around the world. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. So I'm attending all these events. Eventually started a blog, travel.daily.com, which is still up now. It's free. I just started blogging about how airlines and our loyalty programs could make more money out of customers. Taking some experience from the telco industry, which is what I came from. And just started putting information out there for free. And, suddenly I start getting invited to speak at some of these events, and then more and more and more and more. And then eventually, got asked to, if I wanted to run loyalty at Malaysia Airlines. And so that's when I moved to Malaysia and headed up the Enriched Loyalty program for there, and started implementing some of these ideas that I had, started running some of these really cool campaigns, things that basically, as a frequent flyer, you wish airlines would do. I was just solving my own problems. Had a lot of fun, made the airline bucket load of money as well, which is really fantastic. And so after that...
Mark, what were some of those things that were additive that you felt like frequent flyers wanted, but those needs were not being met?
So things like, at the end of the year when your status is up for renewal, right? At the end of the calendar year. You want a little bit of a helping hand from the airline sometimes, because, you fly a lot, you're trying to keep your gold, your platinum, your diamonds, whatever. And, a bit of, quote, gamification in it, right? So, we ran Malaysia ran the first time I'd ever seen it, like a 3 times like a tier points or status credits promotion. A lot of airlines had run like double tier points or status credits. No one had done 3 times. It doesn't sound like much, but it's actually a big deal because it's new. No one had seen it before. Everyone flocked to it. So suddenly, you're getting 3 times the credit for each flight that you were doing. And, you do a bit of math. You go, well, if I fly here to here, then I can, I won't just retain my status. I could get the next level up. And so what happens is new promotions like this encourage, like a spend up sort of psyche from people. If people start spending money they really probably shouldn't be spending on flying. Great for the airline. You get status that you might otherwise not have because you're doing this extra flying, and it's kind of a win-win for everyone.
I would imagine that created some mileage runs. And for our listeners out there that might not be familiar with that term, in the frequent flyer loyalty space, there are people that will get on planes and fly to places with no intention of spending any time at that place other than just accruing the miles, and they will fly back. And I mean, you might fly to another country and spend 2 hours there and get on a return flight back. Those are mileage runs. And I would imagine a 3X in earning potential probably created some of that.
Yeah, totally. I've actually got my mother into mileage running now. She loves it.
I will tell you, and I can't remember if it was Delta or American, but I had a friend who lived in San Diego towards the end of the year, and he was trying to achieve platinum status on one of the two. And there was some similar type promotion, but this guy flew from San Diego to LA and back. He did 8 segments in one day. So it was just San Diego, LA, get on a plane, LA, San Diego, back and forth. And he got 8 segments in one day.
It's interesting. It's interesting how motivating all of these loyalty programs and ideas are in the airlines. Mike and I, because of our involvement in the retail side of the travel industry and the technology side, we're granted status by a lot of major airlines. So I don't have to work to get, my pretty high status. But once I have it, even then it's motivating for me. Then I see how it affects the choices that I make for travel, because I want those benefits. I want those upgrades. I want that it has real value and real motivation for me. This space is always so fascinating for me. So where did you go from there, Mark, after the work at Malaysia?
So after Malaysia, I did a bunch of consulting with a few other airlines. And, the same questions kept coming up. How do we make money from data? And how do we get new customers? How do we just make more money? New customers, more money. That was really a recurring theme. And I thought, you know what? It's about time I revisited my old, status match thing from when I came into the industry, effectively solving my own problems again. And no one had really created a system to build this for airlines and hotels. When airlines and hotels ran these promotions, it was literally just like a landing page and, fill in a Google form or send us an email with a screenshot of your gold card and, we'll reply in 6 weeks and tell you if it's successful or not. And that really is just a really shocking customer experience, really. If someone's got gold status at an airline, presumably they're spending what, 5, 10, 20,000 bucks a year on flying. It's a good customer. If you've got status with an airline, you're in the top 2% of commercial travelers in the world already, and that top 2% is responsible for somewhere around 30 to 40% of total ticket sales for airlines. So, like, this is the kind of customer you want, right? It's like the best customer. They buy premium seats, right? There's a lot of business travelers there, so they're buying like last minute tickets. They're paying a premium for it, especially like a full class economy type ticket. So that they're displaying the patterns you want as an airline. They're coming in last minute. They're spending a lot of money. They're doing it frequently. They're doing it a lot. Tend to complain less as well. And when they fly on vacation, they tend to be loyal to your brand. They might use their miles, bring their family along, and suddenly for the first time, they're showing off to their family. Hey, look, I've not been at home a lot this year, but hey, we're going first class to Tahiti. So and then it's like, that's why Daddy flies.
Yeah, that is so true.
And so these loyalty programs are really powerful. It's a bit psychological, really. There's they're designed out of like computer games, right? You think how addictive computer games are, highly addictive. That's the whole gamification kind of comes from that. They've got status tiers and levels and ways to earn different currencies within games. And, people play games for, hours and hours and days at a time, right? There's something called like the gold gradient effect, which is like when you're getting close to a new tier, for example. So you're almost at like a gold, you're a silver level, you're almost at gold, you're getting close. And the closer you get, the more likely you are to keep spending money to get there. Airlines know this, hotels know this. And so, that's why the tiers and programs are actually designed in a way where most people that do, fly from Los Angeles to New York, if they do 3 returns a year, then they'll be just short of the next one. And so you look at your count, you get into the end of the year, you go, look, I've got a month left. I just need to do one more flight and I get these perks for the next year. And so it encourages a spend up behavior, which so that's why we find actually a lot of people towards the end of the calendar year, just before they're about to lose status. A lot of people start, suddenly they need to have a company trip to New Zealand for some bizarre reason.
Right.
So what is your current role then, Mark? What is your company Status Match about?
So we've built a system to manage status matching on behalf of airlines and hotels. And so, instead of an airline putting up a Google form on a landing page and saying, put in your name and email, contact us, and we'll reply to you in 6 weeks, we manage all that on behalf of the airline. So what would happen then, you'd go to statusmatch.com, or maybe you have a branded page for the airline if we work with them on a different basis, and you go through a process, a really fast, really simple, really beautiful onboarding process. It's like 3 pages of forms. I say like 2 input fields per page. It takes about 60 seconds to go through the whole process. And we can get your loyalty count, matched / upgraded, within, it could be hours, could be a couple of days, tops, like worst case, tops. So what that means is someone that's, I'll give you an example, right? You live in New York and you're flying a lot with JetBlue, yeah? And your company relocates you to Germany, right? And it doesn't make any sense. You can't fly JetBlue anymore. So you kind of got to give that up. So you want a status match with someone like Lufthansa, right? It makes sense. You fly a lot with JetBlue. You're spending a lot of money with them. And presumably you're going to fly a lot in the same company when you move to Germany. And so you hit up someone like Lufthansa and say, hey, can I get a status match? Look, I spend all this money over here. Can you just give me the same thing with you guys? So, I start flying you instead of any of the low cost options in the area, right? Because there's competition, right? Because you're starting from the ground up. So in a perfect world, Lufthansa says, yeah, cool. Here's like a senator status, for example. Start flying us. And so in that kind of scenario, we effectively handle all the logistics on behalf of the airline. So instead of you contacting the airline, you come to us.
Got it. So a consumer would go to statusmatch.com to initiate this, or would they go to Lufthansa in that example and then you host forms or white label pages that process the transaction for Lufthansa?
So, generally, most people come directly to statusmatch.com. Actually, a good example is probably Emirates, who we work with. If you ask Emirates for a status match, they will just say, go to statusmatch.com. And so if you go to us, you go through a bit of a process. We validate that you really do have status with another airline. We validate that you really are you. Everything's legit. We charge a fee. That's how we make our money. We charge the customer an application fee. And once that's validated, we send your details off to the airline and you get upgraded pretty quickly. And so what it means is the airline doesn't really have to bother with anything. They don't, they're not set up to do these kind of checks. They're there to run an airline, not to worry about these little things. So that's why we manage it for them and have that really beautiful brand experience as well. Because when you're switching airlines or trying a new airline, often we find a lot of people, it's the first time they're taking that new airline seriously in their life. They might never have flown a flight with that airline ever, right? And
Right.
It's a bit of unknown, right? And if you have this really fabulous customer experience, the first thing you do is you do a status match like, shit, that was easy. Took me 60 seconds. And, I woke up the next morning and my account's gold status. Wow, if it's that good now in the beginning, imagine how good it's going to be when I fly them. So what it means is they get the status in the account, and the faster that happens, the better, because they're frequent flyers. They fly a lot, they spend a lot, right? So, and they're not going to book a ticket with this new airline until their account's got that gold status there, right? So if an airline takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to do that, it's effectively 6 weeks of lost bookings. So speed is a big element that we assist with in this whole process as well. Get them upgraded, get them booking quickly, get them flying. Everyone's happy.
What kind of benefits do you see, Mark? I mean, what are some of your favorite ones? We know that upgrades are really important to frequent travelers, and those are usually a part of these kinds of programs. And sometimes the upgrades can be confirmed right away or confirmed within a certain number of days of travel. There's preferred boarding and priority, right? I mean, help our listeners understand, why is this so important to frequent travelers? What is it that they're getting?
So typically, let's say a mid-range frequent flyer would get these typical kind of benefits. You arrive at the airport, you're traveling in economy or coach, and you don't line up at that counter. You go to the business class counter, right? So instantly you've could have shaved a couple of hours off check-in process at that point. But, you're in business class, you get no matter what. Even if you're in coach and with your family, you bring them there for that. So that's like perk number one. Perk number two, obviously not paying for bags. If the airline would otherwise pay for, generally is 1 or 2 bags for free. You've got a better seat selection already to start with. You maybe might not have paid for the seat selection either. So that means, like bulkheads if you're in economy, or, if you're lucky, an exit row, things that, if you're traveling with a family and you want to select the priority seats and you're paying for them as a non-status member, it gets really expensive really fast. And so if you've got like a mid-level status, generally that's free. So that's the second thing. And then after that, you're traveling internationally, maybe there's some perk on immigration queues, depending on airports and airlines. Then you of course got lounge access. You're traveling in economy class, you're on a really cheap ticket, you're going to the business class lounge. And in the lounge, you've got free food, free drinks, free alcohol. It's a quiet space, you've got free Wi-Fi. Cool place to chill out before your flight. And then, of course, when on boarding, you've got priority boarding, even if you're in economy class. When they call, business class and gold members, that's you. And it's nothing quite satisfying is when they call business, first class, gold, all that, and you sort of just walk past 200 other people that are in a long line waiting. Even though you're probably on the cheapest ticket on the whole plane, you're actually the least valuable customer of that flight, but yet you're walking past everyone else. Pretty satisfying. So there's that.
And it's such a difference in experience. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have experienced it, and Mike and I thankfully do this a lot, I mean, you sort of sail through the whole airport experience, while for other people, that experience can be tied in knots. There's so much time, so much angst and aggravation, and these kinds of status plateaus change the whole experience for you.
Exactly. They take the pain out of the travel, really.
Yeah, and that's part of our ethos, too, of this podcast, is how to travel better. And it certainly does make it much smoother getting through an airport. And having status is a big part of getting you through quickly, for sure.
What about the current environment we're in, where, we're dealing with historically very high airfares? How does that affect being able to use your points? I mean, are people still, is there a benefit? What's going on now?
So if I could just rewind a little bit here, if we go back to 2.5 years, right? Not as many people flying. And, the message was stay at home, don't worry, just keep spending on your credit card, keep earning your airline miles. And, when the world opens again, you can use your miles for a business or first class flight around the world, your dream destination, your dream trip, right? But just keep spending on the credit card, because credit card and the miles earned from that, airlines make billions of dollars out of this stuff. So they wanted you to keep doing that because that was cash flow into the airlines, which of course they needed at the time. So the message was keep collecting your miles, you'll be able to use them one day. And then what happened is the world started opening up, but it's pretty much open now. And the demand came back, and airlines kind of went back to their, what I'll call the 2019 ways of, revenue management and pricing taking over. And what happened, the demand was there, and airlines like, well, we'll just make as much money as we can and try and make up for the last 2 years. And effectively that's what they're doing. And what it means is there was this unwritten promise or unspoken promise about, save up your airline miles, you'll be able to use them later. And what's happening is you can't really use them now because they're just doing so well at selling fares for cash, right? And so there's a bit of a, well, why should I collect these airline miles anymore if I can't use them for upgrades, if I can't really use them for the flights I want? Because, I want to travel between, everyone wants, New York, London, and business class kind of over Christmas kind of thing. Everyone wants that, and it's just not happening anymore. And people in the back of their minds like, well, I did the right thing to support the airline when you needed it. And now, I'm looking at a ticket in coach across the Atlantic and it's like $5,000. Like, what the heck? And so what's happened is during the pandemic, the loyalty programs of these airlines pretty much saved the most commercial airlines. Because what happened is the value of the loyalty program in airlines in 2020, 21, let's take the big three US airlines, all their the top three US airlines, their loyalty programs are worth somewhere between $20 and $30 billion each, right? Just the loyalty program itself.
Wow.
Whereas the value of the airline on the market they were all somewhere between sort of $9 and $12 billion at the time for the whole group, including the loyalty program. So you kind of look at it and go, so basically the airline has negative value and the loyalty program's got all the value. Something's not right. And all of that is underpinned by the number of miles earned into the loyalty program through people having the credit cards. There's a cash flow from that because it's high margin revenue. American Airlines publishes that they've got a 72% gross margin on selling miles, 53 or 54% net, I think. And airlines don't get those kind of margins selling tickets, selling seats, right, consistently. And so because the value of these loyalty programs is underpinned by selling miles, they need people to collect those miles. So if people start disconnecting from earning miles, it sort of flows on to the rest of the business.
So just to play back that a little bit, you're saying that the airline has a relationship with a bank card and they co-market and get people, they push these credit card applications on the plane, on the flights. Just, it's very annoying too, by the way, the way they do it. But they do that so that the passenger then gets a credit card, creates a level of loyalty back to the airline. But the real trigger, it sounds like, is that as that passenger accrues the miles, then they monetize the purchase of the miles back from the bank card.
Exactly.
And that's where it becomes so lucrative. I did not know that.
Exactly. American Airlines makes more money selling miles to banks than they do profitability than selling tickets to passengers. They're effectively a marketing company. They're a marketing company that has an airline division, not the other way around.
Interesting. Because one of the questions I had for you is, and I know with American this year, they've kind of moved away from earning points from traveling or flying or mileage, if you will, to really what you spend on the airline and your credit card spend. So for every with the American, as you're trying to go up the elite status totem pole that they have, every dollar that you spend, you get a mile, not only as a frequent flyer mile, but it also helps you achieve that elite status. So that answers a little bit of my question there, is why they put such an emphasis on spending, because you can spend it on anything. You can spend it on gas or groceries or whatever, and you're still getting those points. But I guess that means that the airlines are monetizing that spend. Therefore, they're motivating you to spend more on your credit card, and that seems to be more important to them than actually buying airline tickets and flying.
Well, it's more profitable, right? And the airlines have other profit centers too. I mean, this kind of unbundling of airfare spend, the ancillary services and products you can buy from them, and even commodities like the futures on fuel. There was a time, depending upon what's going on in the economy, there was a time when some of these airlines were making incredible profits on fuel futures. Look, airlines are not the only kind of loyalty programs out there. So if this is germane to your business, Mark, what about like hotel loyalty programs and what's going on there?
So hotels are a little different because the setup, see, generally with an airline, the airline owns the loyalty program. It's effectively one family, yeah. Hotels is a bit different because, especially the big chains, you've got hotel brand sitting at the top and hotel owners kind of sitting under that operate under the brand, right? And so the hotel owners don't necessarily own the loyalty program. And so the dynamic is a little bit different there. There was a good post recently, Justin Sprout on Twitter. He was talking about how Booking.com is, and it was specifically third-party booking agents can be more rewarding than hotel loyalty programs directly. And the argument, it goes somewhere like this. If you look at Marriott, Hilton, IHG, the top ones, the rebate in points. So basically the points you earn from when you stay, booking directly and being part of the loyalty program, it translates roughly to like a rebate, right? Somewhere between 4 and 7%. It's kind of about where you are. And if you've got elite status, it's up to about 10, 11% on a rebate. And what that means is some of the third-party rebates or OTAs can actually be worth more than 10%. And so it comes to a point where even if you're really brand loyal and you're staying 200 nights with Marriott, if you're still only getting up to 10% sort of effective rebate through the points that you're given, but you can get more than that by having no brand loyalty, except your loyalty effectively is to the third party or to the OTA, not to Marriott or a Hilton or wherever. And if you could just be loyal to a booking channel as opposed to a brand and get more out of it, there's probably a tipping point somewhere where you go, well, why am I booking direct? Why am I going after this titanium status? Why am I going after this stuff when I can get more by being less loyal, right? And so I think hotels are in some ways setting themselves up for failure here, because at some point they're just going to start pushing away some of their best customers.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for your time. You've been very gracious, and I know it's getting late in the evening there in Malaysia. I did want to wrap up with one other question, which we ask our guest. As a frequent traveler, as most of our guests are, is there one particular thing that comes to mind as a traveler, could be points or not points, that really helps you, or something that you do as you travel, taking a pillow on a plane or what have you, things like that, that you could share with our listeners to teach them or share with them how you travel better?
So I live in Asia, and so this it's not really a hack, but what I find very useful is there's a thing called an APEC card, APEC card, for people that live in APEC economies. So I'm an Australian passport holder, so I got one of these cards. It's for business travelers. And it effectively is a business travel visa to about 20 different countries, including China, Indonesia, a bunch of these countries. So it's a business visa. But the big hack is you can use all the diplomat passport lanes at all the airports.
Really?
So this card cost me, I think, $300 for 5 years. And so I see it as like a VIP pass through all these airports. It's very useful. It saved me a lot of time. Actually, it works in the USA for arrivals as well. Can use the diplomat line. It's quite good.
Oh,
That's great. Well, that's similar to, well, not similar, but if for our listeners who don't live in APEC countries, something like Global Passport, for example, or one
Global
of those
Entry.
programs, Global Entry, that allow you to use faster lines through immigration. Yep.
Well, Mark, again, thank you so much for your time. And let's give your website's URL again for our listeners.
Statusmatch.com, also traveldatadaily.com if you want to read any of the articles that I publish online. Otherwise, add me to LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark.
Next on the podcast, we'd like to bring in our deals guru, Miss Jessica Deverson.
We're actually welcoming her back, aren't we? She's an intrepid traveler, Jessica, and she's, well, without giving away too much, let's say she's of a certain younger age, and she travels always in a fascinating way to me, always really interesting trips. Expedition cruises are very unusual and exotic locations, and we're welcoming her back from, based on her photos and her postings I've seen on social media, from some incredible experiences in Egypt and the Middle East. So great to have you back, Jessica. And I know you've got deals, but you hopefully have a few words you'll share with us about your experience the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, guys, for having me again. So I actually just got back from Egypt and Jordan. And if I had to sum it up in one word, I'd say hot. And then if I had two words, I'd say hot and dusty. It was extremely hot. Obviously, it's the desert, so everything was dusty, but totally an amazing experience. Did a sunrise ATV tour to the pyramids, swam in the Nile, swam in the Dead Sea, climbed the mountain in front of the treasury at Petra to get some really good photos and just all kinds of amazing stuff. And one thing I realized, traveling now and still in this kind of post-COVID world is that people are so happy to see tourists, people in other countries and people in the travel industry. They're welcoming tourists with open arms. They're happy to have us there. They're, go above and beyond to make the experience wonderful because they're just so excited to get people back. And I took at least 6 flights and every single one was half full. So I had whole rows to myself. So truly, it's a great, great time to travel. So book those trips now, get on those planes, get on those cruises. It's really just an amazing time to be traveling. With that said, I have some travel deals. So first, we'll open up with United Vacations. And specifically, United Vacations has a feature for RIU hotels and resorts. They're calling it the Sunshine on Spotlight because there's some really great deals across Mexico, the Caribbean, and all at the RIU hotels and resorts. And they're featuring exclusive offers at new resorts like the RIU Palace, and I'm going to kill this word, Kukulkan, and the RIU Latino. So just the ultimate vacation experience. And right now, when you book, and you have to book through a travel advisor because you will need a promo code. Right now, when you book, you'll get savings up to $550. You'll get hotel savings, resort credits, free room upgrades, and you'll save 10% on round trip transfers. So literally savings across the board on every element of your vacation package. And the RIU Palace, that's an adults only location. And the RIU Latino is also adults only. So just if you're wondering, but both of them brand new. I think one opens in October, one opens in November, tons of restaurants, nightclubs, just really new, interesting places for you to get out to, and tons of savings on both locations. Like I said, that offer requires a fare code, so reach out to your favorite travel advisor to get that booked. Next up, we have Virgin Voyages. You guys know this is one of my favorites because no kids. But if you're not familiar with Virgin Voyages, they actually focus on the Caribbean, Europe. They have some really amazing ocean crossings, also known as transatlantics. Super yacht-inspired design. They tried to make everything really progressive and, forward-thinking and interesting, eco-friendly, focus on wellness. So you can do nothing, you could do something. There's something for everyone. And like I said, from sunrise yoga to outdoor box boxing to HIIT workouts, to their Bimini Beach Club. Literally, you'll find something to do, or you can just try one of their 20 plus restaurants. So tons to do on the Virgin Voyages ships. And right now you can book any ship and you'll get 50% off the second passenger's voyage. So if there's two of you sailing, you'll get 50% off the second passenger, plus an extra $100 towards your prepaid bar tab. So that's an extra $100 to spend on sunset cocktails as you relax on your personal terrace, or you go to the beach club at Bimini. And if you're sailing solo, I love solo travel. You can book with no single supplement, which if you are a solo traveler, that's an incredible deal, having no single supplement. And you also get the $100 towards your bar tab. So that's a very, very good offer. Plus, always included in every sailing for everyone, you get $600 in value. So that'll be tips, the Wi-Fi, the fitness classes, the 20 plus restaurants, and more. So really great value there. Definitely check out all the different sailings. And then if you have questions as far as itineraries and things like that, talk to your travel advisor. And then lastly, I would say in honor of halfway to St. Patrick's Day, just for fun, we're halfway there on September 17th. I wanted to tell you about some Ireland trips. We always get to St. Patrick's Day and we're like, oh, wouldn't it be great to go to Ireland? Wouldn't it be great to celebrate St. Patrick's Day like there? But, it's too late. It's March when you're thinking about it and you're like, maybe next year. Well, we're halfway to St. Patrick's Day. And if you really are thinking about booking a trip to Ireland, now is a really great time to plan and book now rather than waiting, until it's too late or waiting until spring. So there's actually tons of travel companies, both on the land and cruise side, that visit Ireland. And if you're just, interested in popping over, stopping by, heading into port for a day, a cruise is a great way to go. But if you'd prefer to, in-depth exploring, land tours are definitely your best bet. And even on the land tour side, there's plenty of companies that go over to Ireland and, the general region, but and they typically contract with in-destination guides and in-destination drivers and things like that. But there's actually a handful of brands that specialize specifically in Ireland, Scotland, and that general region. So I want to give you two of those brands today. And the first one would be Brendan Vacations. So they're definitely passionate about having an authentic experience. So Brendan Vacations, they really do only focus on Ireland and Scotland. So that means they focus on providing the very best experience because those are the places they know best. They'll introduce you to storytellers. You'll stay in hand-selected accommodations, experience highly personalized service. Then they consider themselves the Celtic experts. So definitely a great brand if you're looking to travel to Ireland or Scotland. And they have some interesting different kinds of trips. And one is an ancestry tour. So they actually help you discover your Celtic roots, retrace the footsteps of your heritage. That's really cool. They also do really amazing golf trips if that's your thing, if you like golf. They feature some of the most historic golf courses for golf lovers. And then they include things like, if you're not so into golf, you can also do horseback riding. They'll do food tours. They have something at the falconry where you can hang out with the falcons and the birds, and they'll teach you how to call them and you can hold them and things like that. So really interesting options if golf isn't your thing. And, they welcome couples, families, solo travelers, everyone in between. And obviously you can travel for St. Patrick's Day, but really any time of year is a great time. To see Ireland in the winter would be lovely, around Christmas time, or to see Ireland at St. Patrick's Day. That'd be amazing and fun. But obviously spring and summer are very great times to visit Ireland as well. So they also offer actually, if you have luxury taste, extravagant taste, they have luxury trips to Ireland as well. And they travel for every style. They have travel for every style. So if you want guided vacations, or if you want a custom chauffeur driven itinerary, if you want to self-drive or you want to do a rail trip, they have everything. So right now you can save 10% on self-guided vacation packages. So like I said, right now is a great time to be thinking about 2023 travel. to Ireland and Scotland in that area. And then the second company I wanted to tell you about is CIE Tours. So that's the largest North American tour operator, and they send visitors to Ireland and Scotland at over 90 years of operation. So they're, again, another expert in the industry as far as Ireland and Scotland, and they really want you to understand and feel confident in the destinations because they know those destinations inside and out, and so they're really taking care of every detail for you. And right now they have an offer where you can save $250 per person when you book nearly any 2023 tour with airfare. So they have something like the Taste of Ireland, where it's like a super whirlwind 7-day tour, really hitting the highlights like Blarney Castle, Killarney, Cliffs of Moher, Dublin, and that sort of thing. Or like an Irish adventure that's 9 days, and you actually you circumnavigate the entire island and see, in addition to the places I just mentioned, but also add like Galway and Titanic and Belfast. So really cool tours, tons of tour options. Actually, that's just 2 of them. So if you have questions regarding more itineraries or you want to book any of these, contact your travel advisor, because also these 2 offers I just mentioned for Ireland also have a special fare code. So you'll need that to take advantage of the offer. So that about wraps it up for me, guys. Thanks so much for having me again. Talk to you next week.
Wow, those are some great deals, Jessica. Thanks for that information and information about your trip that you just came off of. But we're glad to have you back as well.
Absolutely. And Mike, we have a few minutes, and I thought we would chat about, again, our travel experiences and maybe some tips for our listeners to close things out. And I was thinking about, what is it that we do when we first land in a new destination, or maybe when we first get to the hotel. And I'll give you an example. This is going to sound funny, but one of the things I do, if I'm staying more than just a day or two, is I immediately go to the concierge and I arrange to have flowers sent to myself in my room. Now, I know you're laughing.
You're kidding. No, this is a joke. This has to be a joke.
It is not a joke. It just brightens up the room. It's lovely. It makes me feel at home. So if I'm going to be there for, 4 or 5 days a week, I just send myself a beautiful arrangement of flowers for the room. Now, I know I caught you off guard there.
Yeah. And I hope your CFO is listening to this too. Oh, well, I did not expect that one. And I can say I've never done that, but I'll tell you one thing that I do when I first check into a hotel room is I take the bed cover off. A lot of, and I'm not a germaphobe by any stretch of the imagination. But a lot of times hotels don't wash those, it's not the duvet, but
like the bedspread.
A bedspread. Thank you. That's the right word. And what happens is, people come into a hotel room and the first thing they do is they sling their suitcase on top of the bedspread, which, your suitcase is, if you've ever been through the back of an airport, it's pretty disgusting. So that's the first thing I do is I take that off. And generally what I do also is I put the do not disturb sign. I put it out on the door and I leave it there the entire time unless I want my room clean, because that just lessens the chances of somebody walking in your room that shouldn't be there. So that's a couple of things that I do.
I think it's so interesting to see the different ways you and I think. Another thing that I do is I walk around and collect up all those cards and papers that hotels leave around, instructions and little tent folds and all of that stuff. And I put it in a drawer, like in the desk drawer, because it doesn't feel homey to me, right? It's kind of cluttery and very businesslike. And I want my hotel room to feel comfortable and cozy and pretty and like I'm staying someplace special. That stuff gets in my way visually. So there are several things, usually in the bathroom, several cards, and instructions for whatever, and I don't need them, so I put them all away. Another thing I do is I always ask where the gym or the health center is in the hotel. Wow. And I bring with me always workout clothes and sneakers. So I stop at the concierge at the front desk and I say, ask where the gym is. And sometimes I even go to look at it on the way to my hotel room. The thing is, I never actually go back to it during the hotel day. So it's like a tick that I have.
Wow. Learning lots about you today, James. Yeah.
Also, the concierge is your friend, right? I mean, if you're staying in a nice hotel, go see the concierge. You might even tip them or have them make a dinner reservation for you and tip them. Get on their good side from the beginning of the stay, because the concierge can really be helpful to you and help make your trip that much more enjoyable and authentic and all the things that we talk about here. And I think that concierges are underutilized at hotels.
Absolutely. And that's one thing we can agree on. I've had some amazing experiences, including one that I shared, I think, earlier for this past Christmas when I took my family to London, and we ended up staying. We were going to stay a few days in London and then go and spend Christmas in Paris. And because of a change in the COVID travel policy, we couldn't make it. So we ended up staying in London the entire 9 or 10 days and I had a blast, by the way. But when I let the concierge know that we were going to be there for Christmas and I have a small child, they made a lot of effort to make sure that the room was decorated, that the elf brought some gifts up to the room and made it a very special time for my daughter at Christmas. So that's a great example of how concierge can really come to the forefront. One thing I did want to chat about before we sign off is just kind of an update to a topic that we had a few weeks back, and that is when should you arrive at an airport? And I think James and I are kind of the yin and yang of travel, it sounds like, because James thinks you need to be there 5 hours to go shopping and eat at some of the fine restaurants at the airport. And it just so happened this week that James and I I was in New York and we had a meeting. And James and his wife were gracious enough to take me back to LaGuardia. And he was stressing out because it's like 3 hours before the flight, and he's like, "You need to go, you need to go, you need to go." And anyhow, so I just calmly got there at exactly an hour before the flight, checked my bag, got through security, and got to my gate in 12 minutes, just as a happy camper. And of course, James was telling me, you're not in the South. This is not the little Greenville airport. You're at this big major.
What I actually said was, "You're not in South Carolina anymore, Dorothy."
He did. So anyhow, but as we were talking with Mark about the advantages of having status with the airlines and having some of these tools like being TSA pre-checked or having a clear membership, which, by the way, most of your premium credit cards will refund that membership for you, give you a way to, get to the front of the line when you check in or have priority check-in, zoom through security and board your flight early, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully our listeners got some good tips from Mark and some odd tips from James in checking into hotels and sending yourself flowers. But I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. We certainly enjoy our time with you. So please stay tuned and share with your friends, ask them to download and tell them about what we're talking about.
Mike, in upcoming episodes, we really have some great topics. We have executives from the river cruise industry on as special guests. We have adventure travel people. We have Virgin Voyages, the new brand from Virgin for ocean cruising. We have some really incredible episodes coming up, interesting stuff. And you can always count on us for advice and information that you're not going to find anywhere else, like my little tips about what to do when you get to the hotel.
Absolutely. And we also have our contest that we teased a couple of episodes ago. That is in progress. We're still working out some of the finer details, but it's going to be an exciting contest that you can all participate. And we have some wonderful, wonderful prizes that are being sponsored by some of our people we do business with. So if you want the opportunity to possibly win some nice trips, you might want to listen in and keep listening in for the coming weeks as we announce this program.
Sure. Can you say free cruise? But you've got to be in it to win it, right? You've got to be downloading this podcast and be an active listener to win these prizes.
Yeah, more on that to come next week. But for now, thanks for listening. No tourists allowed, and safe travels going forward.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to No Tourists Allowed. No Tourists Allowed was produced by the Greenville Podcast Company. See you next week for another episode.